Hey, I know you're in there, come out. The sound of heavy knocking echoed at the front of my parents' house. After being deceived by my ex-husband Jameson, I divorced him and returned to my parents' home. Jameson showed up unannounced and seemed utterly unconcerned about causing a disturbance for the neighbors. Can you believe how much money I spent on you? Trips, meals out, even living expenses since we got married, all came out of my hard-earned money. If we're talking divorce here, how about you give back all that money I spent? He spoke as if he were the victim. All I could muster was, okay, fine, come in for now. I opened the door with a resigned look, and there he stood, smirking as if he'd won. Gotcha! But really, I was the one who should be laughing. Jameson had no idea he'd just walked into a massive trap. My name's Lydia. I used to be an office worker and had a good thing going with one of my colleagues, Jameson. We met at an office party and got married a year later. I got pregnant and decided to take maternity leave. Lydia, congratulations. Please let me know after the baby's born. Gabriella, my colleague, excitedly gave me a safety charm for a safe childbirth. It was good news, but I was sad I wouldn't be receiving your guidance anymore. Don't worry, Lydia, Jameson will be your new boss. He's even better at the job than I am. Gabriella's boss was going to be Jameson. Jameson previously had a female employee named Sarah under him but held a higher position than me and had more trust from the company. I confidently handed over my duties to him as Gabriella exaggerated her sorrow. I left the company I loved so much and began my maternity leave. Our home was far from my parents' house in another state, making frequent visits to my family difficult. I preferred to avoid long train journeys and focus on my maternity leave at home. This house was a wedding gift from my father, a doctor and a respected figure in our town, who was in a good financial situation. He bought this house knowing we were just starting and didn't have much money. Since our family was expected to grow, he spared no expense in building a big house and covering the land costs. I couldn't be more grateful to my father. For a while, Jameson and I felt indebted to my father and wanted to repay him, especially since my income had decreased during my maternity leave. Jameson began working harder and came home later every day, despite the company usually allowing employees to leave at a set time. Recently, he was returning hours later. How's work going? You're coming home late, but you're not overdoing it, right? I'm fine, it's my duty to work hard for you and our baby, it's nothing. Despite the late hours, Jameson seemed unaffected and even happy. I have to take care of my team and my work, so I have little time. I might even have to stay overnight at the office, but don't worry, I'll manage my health. Just focus on our baby. He gently caressed my belly and reassured me. I trusted that smile, I truly believed in it. When my belly had noticeably grown, cracks in my trust in Jameson began to show. Lydia, haven't seen you in a while. How about we grab a coffee this weekend? One weekend, I received an invitation from Gabriella. My morning sickness had subsided, so I eagerly agreed and got ready for the meetup. An hour later, Gabriella came to see me. She was overjoyed to see my belly but then said something odd, weird how big you've gotten. Think about it, you, who were always slim, changed like this because of the baby. It's my first pregnancy, so every day is a surprise. Thanks for coming all this way. Jameson's out, so make yourself comfortable. Yeah, I know, Gabriella said, aware that Jameson wasn't home. Her expression darkened a bit, even though she was smiling just a moment ago. Actually, there's something I need to tell you without Jameson finding out. Her seriousness worried me as I invited her into the living room. Sipping slightly warm cocoa, Gabriella began to speak softly. I hesitated to tell you this, but I felt you should know, and that's why I came today. You're scaring me with that serious face. If you're hesitating, it must be something important, right? Go ahead. After a pause, Gabriella looked straight into my eyes. Jameson is having an affair. It took a few seconds for her words to sink in. Wait, what do you mean? Confused, I pressed for more details. Gabriella simply laid out what she'd seen recently. She first became suspicious of Jameson's odd behavior. He had a team member named Sarah, and his physical interactions with her were excessive, touching her hand, grabbing her shoulder, and sometimes even her back, clearly beyond normal work behavior. Initially, Gabriella thought it might just be harassment and asked Sarah if she was comfortable, but Sarah's response was unexpected. It's not harassment. I'm happy when Jameson touches me. Besides, we're in love, so it doesn't matter. Hearing this was shocking, especially knowing Sarah was aware of me. But Jameson's married and has a baby on the way, you know? I do, but Jameson said he doesn't want the baby. He said he's lost attraction to his wife and wants to separate as soon as possible. After saying this, Sarah left. The joy of my married life made it hard to believe these words, but I knew Gabriella wouldn't joke about something like this. Thanks for telling me. I trust you, but I also trust Jameson, so I'll check this myself. Can you keep what you told me today just between us? After Gabriella left, I immediately hired a private investigator to look into Jameson's affair. The results were indefensible. The detective sent photos of Jameson and Sarah dining out and kissing. Seeing these, my feelings for Jameson instantly turned cold. As I cried, I reported this to my parents, and my father was furious. Betrayal is unforgivable, especially when there's a child involved. This is madness. I'm coming, Lydia. Be ready to leave. As promised by my father, he came to pick me up early the next morning before Jameson left for work. When we arrived at the door, we encountered Jameson. Good morning, but why are you here? I can't lie. I can't stand men like you. I'm taking my daughter, the house and land will be sold, so you need to leave today. What do you mean? What happened? Lydia, explain. I couldn't utter a word to Jameson and left the house, trusting my father to carry my large suitcase. The commotion quickly spread at the company, and by noon, Gabriella called me. She was worried it might be her fault, but I was truly grateful to her. Thanks to you, I was able to divorce that traitor. I really appreciate it. But Jameson might come to your house tomorrow. What should I do? My parents' home security was excellent, and my father was there, so there was no need to worry. There's really nothing to worry about, but actually, I'd like to ask you for a favor. I asked her to gather information to gain an upper hand on Jameson. With this, I can take my revenge. After hanging up with a smile, my father, who was driving, curiously looked at me. Why the sudden happiness? Jameson might come to our house tomorrow. I thought I'd give him a warm welcome. I wasn't sad anymore, ready to pay back everything that had deceived me. As Gabriella predicted, Jameson came to my parents' house the next day. Lydia, I know you're in there, come out. It's all a misunderstanding. He stood there, red-faced with anger. I don't know who's washed your brain, but I've done nothing to deserve being thrown out like this. Can you honestly say you've done nothing wrong? Of course. If your father hits me, it's okay, I just want to tell the truth. I couldn't stand Jameson's seemingly honest eyes, those eyes that drew everyone in and made them trust him. I had evidence that it was all just an act. Okay, come in so we can clear this up in front of my father and resolve any misunderstandings. All right. I led him to a back room. Forgot to mention, we have a guest. Say hello. In the room, my father was already seated, and Sarah was sitting right across from him. I had gotten Sarah's contact information from Gabriella. When I told Sarah I wanted to talk about Jameson, she agreed without hesitation. Perhaps this wasn't to Jameson's advantage. Jameson's face turned pale at the sight of Sarah. Sarah also wanted to talk to me, but I didn't have the time, so I told them to listen together. Jameson, With nothing to say, let Sarah start with a tremble. I've been in a relationship with Jameson for a while. I knew he was married to you, but he told me he loved me. He's a kind man, it's unfair to take everything from him. At least give him the house. Sarah, what nonsense are you talking about? Jameson glared at her with disdain and retorted. Don't get caught up in your delusions. I've been suffering from your misunderstandings for a long time, so don't stand here and lie. Jameson became agitated and turned towards me. She's obviously misunderstood my management guidance. Sarah was shocked as Jameson continued his rant. I pulled out several photos from my pocket that the private detective had taken of Jameson and Sarah in the act. Is this part of your management guidance? Hugs and kisses? Where did you get those photos from? It's not just pictures, I have videos too. Want me to play them here? Jameson, now without any defense, stopped trying to defend himself. Sarah, no longer receiving any support from Jameson, started crying. This is the worst, you even brought Sarah here, prepared these photos, was this all your plan? I just exposed your mistakes, it's your fault. I'll be filing for compensation soon, now please leave. No, do you know how much I spent on commuting here? Jameson began to whine like a child. Remember all those times I paid for our dates, the meals, even the birthday gifts I gave you, they weren't cheap. I even paid for the trip home for the separation. After all that expense, leaving is a betrayal. You cheated first, and now you're talking about betrayal? I was astonished and at a loss for words. And about the house, it's a marital asset, so it should be divided. Selling it all is just bullying, you can't do that. Aren't you sorry? Don't you have a heart? What are you talking about? Asking for money back for dates? That's pathetic, it's just a few $1,000s in total. Besides, that house isn't yours or Lydia's, it's mine. I allowed you to use it, so the rights are mine, not yours or Lydia's. And I certainly don't want to hear about sympathy from a selfish traitor. Shut up, this is a matter between a husband and wife, don't interfere. Jameson lunged at my father, but with the skills he'd acquired from years of judo practice, my father easily took him down and held him firmly. If you make a scene here, I'll call the police. If you don't want that, then just leave. Following my father's command, Sarah and Jameson left, both in tears. Watching their pitiful retreat was hard to bear. Then, I filed a lawsuit for compensation against Sarah and Jameson. They both faced a debt of around $20,000, and since I provided evidence of their affair to the company, their fake overtimes for meetings were uncovered, and they had to pay for the inappropriate overtime, putting them in a difficult position. Jameson received a demotion at his workplace and faced cold treatment from his colleagues, making his work environment unpleasant. Sarah seemed to be in a similar situation of discomfort, and it appeared that both eventually resigned. I'm not sure what Sarah is doing now, but Gabriella told me she saw Jameson working part-time at a convenience store near his former workplace. Because of you, I'm glad I didn't have to raise a child with such a man. Thank you. It's nothing. I'm sad you had to leave, but can I come visit this holiday season? Of course, come over. By then, the baby will have arrived. As we spoke, the baby in my belly kicked. The health of this child is now my happiness. Despite the major ordeal, I managed to keep what was important to me. Now living in my parents' spacious home, I await the birth of my child.